Most business owners are using AI for basic tasks like emails. The ones that are getting ahead, they're using it to transform how they work. I'm Tania Gomez. 6 months ago, I didn't know the difference between ChatGPT and a chatbot. Now I'm learning from AI experts, testing tools in real businesses, and sharing everything that works. Because AI won't replace you, but someone using AI will. This is the AI Apprentice. Join our free community of practice at providercollective.com.au, where hundreds of business owners are learning together. We start as AI apprentices, but we leave as masters. Let's get into it. Welcome to the AI Apprentice. I'm Tania Gomez, your host today, and I'm joined by the beautiful Valentina Coyne. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me, Tania.
Yeah, it's always such a pleasure. To begin with, tell us a little bit about Via Technology and how you help businesses.
Via Technology is a team of tech and systems experts, and we partner with growing and scaling businesses to systemize their operations and then find and implement the best ERP and CRM pieces of software.
Beautiful. So today I wanted to talk about automation versus delegation and how we can use AI to do those. To begin with, could you talk to me a little bit about the difference between what automation is and delegation and what this actually means when we're talking about creating a system that might use elements of AI?
100%. Great place to start. So first of all, from our perspective, and it's an easy mistake to make, but from our perspective, automation and delegation actually belong to two very different domains. They are almost two lines if you look at a chart. So delegation for us comes into play when we consider, as a business leader, we have a set of tasks. Which tasks belong to which person within the business? Even if we talk in terms of maybe we are a one-man band or a 10-team small growing business, we still want to be able to talk about delegations in terms of which hat is this person wearing at this point in time. Even if I am a sole trader, I want to be able to wear the CEO hat. I want to be able to wear the worker on the ground hat. I want to be able to wear the finance manager hat or the marketing and sales hat. So delegation from our perspective is sitting, let's say, on the vertical axis, and then on the horizontal axis you have automation. Now, on one extreme of automation, this is the framework we use to think about it. On one extreme you have automation. This is where you get a piece of technology, a machine, to do something for you, and automation is the ability to produce the same outcome repeatedly following the same strict set of rules with no variation whatsoever. At the other end of the spectrum, you would think that you have manual work, but what we put in there instead is the word discernment. It's one of our favorite words, and the reason why we put discernment there is that it is an inherently human quality, and it allows us to not just have a rule and follow it blindly. It's not a black or white situation. Now we live in the world of nuance and context and the ability to infer information from the situation that we're in and make different choices based on that. Those are the two extremes of that horizontal axis. And then somewhere in the middle, we would sit AI tools. Some of them lean more towards the automation side of things, and some of them are trying to get closer and closer and closer to the human brain and have that intuition and that insight that humans inherently have, but they're not quite there yet.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Those are the two frames that we would think about.
Yeah, that's a bit of a spectrum from one side to the other.
100%. And I guess when it comes to the delegation axis, our point of view on a business is that the CEO, the visionary, the leader, should have a very, very small subset of things that they are responsible for. Everything else should be delegated. So again, if you are a small business or you're a one-man band, you're still going to be doing all of those tasks, but make sure you're in the right frame of mind as to which role are you sitting in. When we started our business, for example, I started it first. I stepped out and I started it myself. But as soon as my husband came and joined me, we went out for a business lunch. And I drew an org chart of all of the roles that I knew 3 years after the business would need. And then we said, who's going to sit in this seat? Who has the skills? Who has the propensity to sit in that seat? And then who's going to wear that hat? And that helped us immensely, not only with delegation and task management, but also with accountability and responsibility, which is the biggest thing that comes from delegation. You can't give away a task to be done to someone in your team without also giving them the freedom and the responsibility and the accountability to do something about that. So that's on the delegation axis. On the automation axis, I would ask myself questions such as, how much intuition does this task require? How critical and essential is it that the outcome is always precise and always the same? So finance tasks might lean more on that side, whereas creative tasks might lean more on this side. Can this be automated? Can this be repeated? Also, another thing that I don't think is very common to think of is what is the cost per action that this task requires? And the reason why we ask that is some AI tools, most AI tools really, operate on tokens. So software, you develop it once, it might cost you, let's say, a fair amount of money to develop that, but then you can repeat the action however many times you want. It's not going to cost you any more. It's just going to cost you that license or the data storage cost, maintenance cost. A human, on the other hand, we do everything manually. We have 8 hours in a day. We can send so many emails or record so many videos or run so many projects. AI sitting in the middle, yes, it can do a number of tasks, but because it has a little bit of that human quality, it's typically charged by token. And so you might be charged by minute of video edited, or you might be charged by email that goes out, or you may be charged by the amount of characters that you put into ChatGPT. And so we want to think about the cost per action when we're thinking about within the spectrum of automation. Should we go more towards a software, traditional software development, or should we go more towards AI? It's one of the things we want to consider.
Yeah, that's interesting to think about, and to think about what this means for all the subscriptions that we have into the future, where they won't be static. And although, you know, it's funny when I look at my P&L and look at how much I spend on systems, it's always a little bit horrifying, because you're like, oh, but actually they probably do replace quite a few humans, which would be more expensive. So there's still an initial cost savings there, but it can still be quite a large investment.
Yeah.
As an example, I use a CRM that uses AI, and we have a lot of tokens that are included, and the monthly fee is way less than the systems that it replaced. We replaced about 5 systems with this one system, and it does a really great job, but we get these ongoing bills out of nowhere for extra money. And at first I was like, what are we doing wrong? But actually, no, that's just the business model. It's all based on usage. So, you know, every time we have quite a large database that we send emails to, and sometimes it can cost us $1,000 to do an email campaign. And I'm like, okay, wow. So now we have to be really careful about where is this email going, and having good systems and tags and segments to make sure it's going to someone who's interested in it. Otherwise, you're, you know, especially, and making sure the list hasn't got email addresses in it that are bouncing or that are old, or, you know, all of those things, really having to keep that data clean, because otherwise you're wasting could be thousands of dollars.
That's exactly right.
So yeah, that's really interesting. I wonder what the systems will look like in 5 years from now, and what billing will look like. There's a really interesting business model there for software providers, instead of getting $30 a month forever, to actually be encouraging you to solve more of your problems, to use more of their actions, for them to almost be receiving a percentage of your business by them saying, oh, well, it's only 30 cents every time you do this action. And you don't need to have a human do this action anymore, but then they're actually almost receiving a salary from you for that. Yeah, it's interesting.
In the past few years, whenever we put together an RFP for a customer, some software vendors actually already applied that per action or per token before the token were a thing, pricing.
Yeah.
And I could immediately see when we presented such a solution compared to the fixed monthly fee, user fee price, the business leader going, oh no, but this is inconceivable almost, because I can't predict my cost and it could balloon out of proportion. Fair enough. Suddenly now we're not going to be able to avoid that anymore. We're going to have to be really precise in estimating what is it going to look like, and also keep an eye on it monthly so it doesn't balloon out of control.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Very interesting. It'll be interesting to see how this transforms. I'm just working on our pricing model for Auditly, our new policy solution at the moment. We just finished a pilot with about 25 providers, got feedback from them on what they would want to pay. And we had, because it's AI, there's AI within it that helps you do customization. There is a little bit of tokens, but we haven't really so far we haven't done a token model because we weren't actually sure how that would go. I think we're too early in the piece to introduce that to a disability provider. And for me, it's that uncertainty piece. It's that they won't actually be able to forecast what the cost will be. And that's a really hard sales messaging at the moment. Yeah. But not to say in 5 years' time that that's not just how everything is going to be done and you pay for usage. Like I guess you pay for your phone bill or you pay for your electricity bill per usage. And we're all used to that now.
Or it could be capped to a certain amount of tokens included in the price, and then the rest is per usage.
Yeah, that's also
many
interesting.
Business models.
Yeah. So let's talk about a typical small or medium business. If there's a typical small or medium business listening to this who's really interested in playing with AI, where can they start? And are there certain tools or certain areas that they can start with for the first time experimenting with AI?
First place that I would start is I would take stock of per role. And so this is where I would leverage my team. I wouldn't do that all myself if I was a business leader. I would ask each role in my organization to take stock of what are the processes that you do most often? What are the tasks that you do most often within those processes? Which ones are either the most painful or the most repetitive, or the ones that require the most customization and take the most time. So those are the three things that I would look at: time, cost, repetition, and customization. Those are the places where we want to start looking at potential for AI to come in. And then we want to be able to run it through a process where, as tempting as it is to go straight to the technology, we want to be very methodical in mapping what it is exactly that the process looks like or the task look like, almost like a step-by-step SOP. And we want to be really clear on what the outcome that task gives us. So those are the two things that I keep in mind. How am I currently doing this task? And what is the outcome that I want to get from this task? Say, for example, it is to get a document signed. For example, you might be punching in the information into the document. You might be leveraging a software already to email that document out to a client. Maybe there's some reminders, and then you want to receive back a signed document with a scribble in the sign box. That's the outcome.
Yeah.
The steps, they're good to be mapped because we have an understanding of what type of task we're talking about. But when we start looking at the tool, we want to first always start with the outcome. It's almost like the step don't matter to a degree at the beginning, because the first thing the tool should do for us is provide us with the outcome. Yeah. Once we tick off that yes, this particular AI tool provided us with the outcome that we want, which is a signed document, then we can start looking at the process and the step-by-step of that process. Yeah. My suggestion is always to streamline the process away from the technology. So if I realize it takes me 27 steps to get to a signed document, I would probably pause for a moment and analyze, do I really need 27 steps? Might it be a bit overkill? Where can I cut? And if I cut this step, will it alter the experience I'm providing to my customer, or will it alter the experience that my staff are having? Because both have weight. And then ideally with this streamlined process, I can go and look at the tool. Now, if we find an AI tool that provides us the same outcome with even less steps and less human interaction, that is even better, because technology is helping us get to that outcome. But that's where I would really be careful that in those steps we do not lose critical either interactions, human to human interaction, or critical compliance requirements that, because I'm so focused on the outcome, I might be missing out here. That my current process, my current software provides me with. Maybe I jump onto a new one, I then lose those.
Yeah.
But always start from the outcome.
Can you over-automate a process?
Certainly can. I've seen it time and again, and it's natural. It's a natural mistake to make. I think in today's business mindset, we're always chasing efficiency and chasing automation. It's the shiny word. I see it especially in smaller businesses that are starting out. There is this desire of already being there where the bigger organizations are, and there is this desire of optimize and make it all efficient, automate, technology should do it for me. And for us, whether you're a startup or a small business that's growing, I think there is tremendous power in remaining agile and not having your processes set in stone as you're starting a business, because you need to make sure, first of all, that you are solving a problem that your customers are willing to pay for.
Yeah.
You need to validate that your processes are solid and can stand the test of time as your business grows, as they start being stretched by volume or speed or number of people going through that process and maybe not following that process accurately. So we want to future-proof that. And as a small business, it's the same for us. We're still a growing business. Sometimes we're tempted, especially me, because I love process. I'm like, we should map this. We should have this all figured out by now, and we can try to automate it. But the reality is sometimes I have to stop and accept that actually we're not there yet.
Yeah.
We have to remain unsystemized in some areas of our business at this stage because we have not yet validated certain assumptions.
Yeah.
And only when we get to that point, we know the process is solid, we know we're solving a problem that the market is willing to pay for, and we know we can stretch that process, and we have captured enough variations in the process that we're talking about. So say it's a sales process. We go from point A to point B. Someone who is not a client then becomes a client and signs a document or pays an invoice. Have we captured really all the variations of that process yet? If the answer is we're not sure or no, then you can't automate that yet.
Yeah. You're
You're still in that phase. So yes, you can certainly over-automate. The biggest mistake I see is automating too early in the piece.
Okay.
The over-automation typically, if it happens later in the journey, it makes itself known really quickly, where we put too many steps in place, and then the human is almost chasing the piece of technology, whether it's our client, hopefully not, or whether it's us testing this automation, this new piece of technology we're putting in place, and we're almost chasing the piece of technology. This is over-automation.
Yeah.
Something's not right here.
Yeah. I find that it's always iterative, and I think people come into it thinking, even with policy development, that I'm going to do it once for them. And if I process map out a process for them, let's talk about like incidents or complaints or something that has a legal ramification, and we're mapping out the process, there's very definite things that have to occur. But when you collect the information, how you respond, all of that is your choice. And if you've never done it before, I can't really do this for you. You know, I can tell you the 5 steps, but at that point, a Word document, a checklist, is probably the best form, because then you can write all over it and it can evolve as you go. And whenever I give someone, even if it's a Word document, I'll always say to them, this is iterative. So this is our first draft. Try it for 3 months, and in 3 months we'll continue to edit it again, because it's not until you're using it, especially if it's a checklist or a form that they're going to be using every day, like a intake document, a referral form, something like that they're using every day. And if they've got lots of clients they're using this for, by the time you filled it out 10 times, you have some information. By the time you filled it out 1,000 times, you know that on those 1,000 versions, question 3 and 4 are very similar, and you're just writing as above. And, you know, section 4 should be a drop down or a checkbox, and it should be definitive answers because they're always the same. But if it's the first time you've done this, it really is impossible for me to streamline or systemize until you're actually doing it.
Yes.
And you know what your preferences are and what does good look like for you, because the standards can say one thing, but that can be met in so many variations. It's really about what's usable for you. And until you're using it, it's not possible. And I almost see a look of disappointment on people's faces when I say to them, it's not finished here. This is the start, not the end. Because they're like, well, can't you just map my processes once and we're finished? Well, yes, if your business never changed and evolved, and if your clients didn't change, and if the government didn't change, and if you didn't change, and if you didn't grow, and if you didn't evolve.
Yes.
But it's always a moving document. And I think why that is a bit distressing for people is that it's not within their skill set. It's a little bit outside their skill set, and they just want something that works, that they can rely on to make their life simpler.
Yes, I can totally see that, and it makes perfect sense. I think one of the biggest mindset shifts that will help everyone in their life, and I can honestly say everyone, is accepting that change is the only constant.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Whether it's change in regulation, whether it's change in the process, whether it's changing you as an individual because your life circumstance changes, what you want to dedicate to work versus home life changes, it doesn't really matter. If we accept change is part of the game, and it is a very, very big shift. I recognize that I'm just putting it on the table as if it was simple. But if we accept that, then we accept that our policies and our procedures will always change.
Yeah.
We accept that our systems and our technology will always keep evolving. And we can try to stop seeing this as something that has gone wrong,
Yeah.
or something that is wrong with me or my business because I just can't put my process A to Z on a piece of paper. There must be something wrong with my business.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with your business. And outgrowing systems, policies, and processes is a normal part of growing. It's actually a very healthy sign.
Yeah.
So I want that change.
Yeah, I agree. When you are mapping out a process with someone, how do you decide what steps AI should do and what steps need to be that human interaction?
So first thing, I believe every business can and should actually answer this question differently. Every single business under the sun, even if we deliver the same exact outcome, the same exact service and product, will do so differently because we are groups of people delivering something to another group of people or another individual, right? So the level of what should remain human and what should be done by a machine and what should be done by AI, even if you take the same business in the same location that sells the service at the same price, potentially, certain industries like the NDIS have a certain price cap, you will still deliver a different service and you will still provide a different experience.
Yeah.
So this is where our brain goes, experience. And the other word, it might sound a little bit odd, but stay with me, it'll make sense. We talk about it in terms of what level of vulnerability do you want your customers to have in that interaction. So we have a process, and let's say it's made up of 10 steps. At each steps, I would ask myself the question, am I in this step sitting in a very commercial, very repetitive, very cost efficiency focused type of task where I want it to be delivered the most efficient as I possibly can at the lowest cost that I possibly can. There is no need for human interaction. We talk about connection.
Yeah.
We say vulnerability because on the other end of the spectrum, another step, what is the level of vulnerability that I want my client to have during this step? Which to me means that at that point, the individual isn't purchasing the product or the service that we're delivering via that step for the sake of the product and the service, but they are purchasing it as a tool to better understand themselves. And hopefully this makes sense. In the sense that if I want to, let's say, purchase a coffee, right? I love coffee. I'm Italian. I can't not love coffee. Now, there's automatic machines that make me a coffee, but then there's also going to a coffee shop and having a human, a barista, make me a coffee. That experience of me drinking a machine-produced coffee versus drinking a coffee produced by a human is actually going to teach me something about myself. Now, what it taught me, for example, is that I don't just want a coffee. I want a high quality coffee at the temperature that I like. And I also value the social interaction of chit-chatting with the barista as they're making a coffee, because I was a barista many years ago and I miss that sometimes, and I want to chat with them and give them a little bit of sparkle in their day, because often we ignore the human that's producing the product and the service that we're purchasing. But actually, they're also humans, and I find so much joy in engaging with them. And so for me, the experience, the two different experiences and the level of vulnerability that I get to share and exchange in return in that interaction is absolutely going to decide which, as a consumer, which product do I buy? Yeah. Do I go for the automated machine in the hall, or do I pay the premium for 3 times the price, because coffee is expensive these days, because I get all of that experience? So when I say every business should decide that for themselves, yes, look at the efficiency side, but also look at the experience you're providing, because if we just look at the efficiency, then it's going to be a race to the bottom. You're always going to be competing on price. And that doesn't help anybody, because the quality of the services that we provide will slowly erode and go down if we only look at efficiency. The level of happiness of our team members will also go down, and it's a downward spiral. Whereas if we find a way to match the two, you've got a downward spiral and an upward spiral. As a business owner, we need to pay attention to both. We can't just provide amazing experiences and not look at the commercial reality of it. Yeah. But they both have a place. So that's how I would decide whether a step in a process should be done by a machine, a human, or AI. First of all, is this an efficiency task, or is this an experience and vulnerability? For example, a business coach. I know, I'm going to stop in a second. Sorry, I just get so excited about this stuff. A business coach. I see business coaches. Now, what do business coaches sell? Knowledge, support, guidance. It's not the hour of coaching, it's the transformation we get from that 1 hour of coaching. And yet we also want to look at the commercial reality. So I see business coaches wanting to build their own custom GPT based on their own frameworks and insights, so that they can serve more people, they can support their team out of hours, for example, when they're sleeping. I can just jump on and ask the ChatGPT from my coach. It's great, but it will never replace that.
The human and the relationship that you build and those things. Although I know this is completely off topic, but I have been hearing quite a lot about AI boyfriends and girlfriends and that whole rise in people actually having real relationships with AI. So maybe there is something to be said about AI maybe being better at some of those things sometimes. I think the only thing I would add to what you said is I do think it's very much personal, but I think it also very much relates to your client and what you're talking about, the experience you want to give, but often it's the experience they want to receive.
Yes.
And a really great example of this is in a previous business, we built out an automation and it was to help people with their NJS registration, and we automated the whole thing. So we could talk to a client once at sales, get all the information at sales, which was highly effective and efficient. And then basically we could talk to them at the end of the process and give them everything. And we could do it instantly because we set up all of these automations in place. This was a long time before AI was there. But we found that when we did it that way, they didn't see it as valuable. And the faster we delivered it, the less value they saw. So we'd say, I can't remember exactly, but let's say we're charging $3,000 and it was done in 15 minutes. They were like, well, why would I pay? It took you how long? It's still in the background, it still did that, but we would just put a timer on it so it popped out in 7 days, and they found it immensely more valuable at the 7-day mark, which, time is money. So you'd think it was faster, but actually we dehumanized the process. So then we created a role called a registration consultant, and we had someone take it away from sales, do an onboarding call post-sales, and then a completion call 1 week later. And that actually made all of the difference to how much human was in that loop of the process. And then they were happy to spend that money, where it was actually exactly the same thing in the background. So I think it's knowing what your client wants and being able to ask those questions and testing and piloting and asking, you know, that exact question.
And they didn't feel like they had that transformation delivered
That's right.
to them.
They didn't learn from the process.
Exactly.
You know, they were,
Bingo.
it was done for them,
Yes.
where they wanted to be more involved in that process. And maybe like I've used a lot of websites to buy business, to buy business names. And I don't need to talk to someone in that process. But if it was a legal document, I probably do need a lawyer to walk me through it.
Yes.
So it's very much, you know, it could be the same amount of money, it could be the same process, but maybe it's the stressfulness of the situation and how much support do they actually want through that process from a human who can guide them through it. And a lot of what the consulting that I do, it's, you know, I'm a counsellor equal parts to I am knowledge, because it's about sharing that experience with someone, having someone to walk you through it step by step, having someone that you can trust, rely upon. And we're probably too early to have a chatbot to do those things. But maybe not. Maybe in the future we'll have more of you know, maybe my children, when they're my age and they are buying things, maybe if they've had 30 years of building relationships with technology and are digitally literate in that way, AI literate maybe, then maybe the experience might be very different. It might be my agent talking to your agent, and then there's none of that human experience involved. It's just my agent's looking for the best deal, talks to your agent, and they have a conversation in the background, and those decisions are made by our agents, and we come to work and the toilet paper has been purchased and it's arrived.
Potentially.
Yeah.
I think these things happen in a pendulum swing. So we might very well get to that point, but it will then swing back. You know, these days everyone's saying, face-to-face networking is not here anymore. No one wants to show up to networking events anymore. And yet, for high quality events, for actually a much higher ticket than what I used to pay 10 years ago, we still have face-to-face events, and I travel an hour and a half for them. Why is that? That's because the quality of it is just not the same as a Zoom call.
The relationship that you build.
Yes, and AI will become so ubiquitous, like Zoom calls, like work from home, like spreadsheets. No one ever thinks today, should I use a spreadsheet for that? You just go and use a spreadsheet. That's normal, right? I don't hate on spreadsheet. Don't talk to me. AI will become the same, I think. And it will be really good for certain tasks and also certain individuals. Because I think in terms of even counseling, right? Psychology. AI could do that if we put the right boundaries and frameworks around it, because sometimes it does hallucinate and sometimes it does tell us just what we want to hear. So not a very good counselor right now. And then I think about individuals who maybe just don't want to leave their home. Or the other one that I heard was learning a new language. I think it was Duolingo. Testing, offering as a service. They did their market research. Almost right. So they offered this new service where you could learn a new language by exchanging lessons with another native speaker. So if I want to learn English and my background is Italian, so I could swap Italian lessons with you. And everyone said, yes, we'll pay a premium for that. We'll pay a higher fee. Then they released it. No one bought it. A few years later, they tried the same thing with an AI bot. So this wasn't a real human. It was an AI bot, and the uptake of the user was tremendously high because there was no judgment. They realized there was no judgment from
look silly.
I sound silly, or I'm not using the right word. The other person's going to judge me, and then
probably availability also, right?
Maybe,
like trying to schedule to speak to someone at a certain time is hard and it becomes a chore. But if I can open my phone and chat to a chatbot while I'm, you know, waiting for the washing or whatever it is in between things,
quite possibly. All of those elements come into play. But it's
about meeting the people where they're at, and again going back to solving the problems that are the biggest problems. Is there any simple exercises you can think of that listeners can use to sort their tasks into what can be automated, what can be delegated, and what needs to stay with them?
The simplest way to do it, I would think, is first of all, list the tasks. We've said that already. Create your 3 columns, right? Delegate, automate, keep with myself. Now, we've said it at the beginning of the session. If you are a leader, you should keep the role of CEO as just visionary. So that column should be almost empty, right? Then as far as delegate and automate, remember they're two separate axes.
Stop for a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe start that again.
Start that again?
Yeah.
Give me the question again, please.
Yeah. So what are some simple exercises that listeners can use to sort their tasks out, to automate, delegate, and keep with them?
Excellent. All right. Easy way to do it. First of all, when you're thinking about a process, list all the steps in that process, list all the tasks. Once you have that list, create 3 columns on a piece of paper. Delegate, automate, and keep with myself. Now, if I am the CEO, we've said it earlier, that column, keep with myself, should be almost empty because as the visionary, as the CEO, I have very few tasks that I should do. If you're a small business and you cover multiple roles, have one of those documents for each role. That's a really good place to start. Now, when it comes to delegate and automate, remember they're 2 separate axes. So on the delegation column, who is responsible for the outcome that this particular task provides? That will help you determine whether it is delegatable and who to delegate it to. And when it comes to automate, remember the axis is automation, machine, repetitive, strict rules, always the same outcome on one side, and human intuition, discernment, context-based decision making on the other, and AI sits kind of in the middle. Those are the things that I would think of when trying to decide what to do with a particular task.
Beautiful. I love that. If someone finds all of this really overwhelming and they're not sure where to begin and they want some help from you, what's the best way that they can reach out?
Reach out on LinkedIn. You can find us as VIA Technology, VIA Technology. And we have actually a workbook that I'm very happy to share with all the listeners to decide whether a task should or should not be run by AI. Actually, maybe you can put it in the show notes.
Yeah, let's do that.
If you go through that process and you get the result of not AI, trust the process. There's a good reason for that. As much as you want AI to do that task, maybe it's not an AI task.
Yeah, great. All right, well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been awesome as always.
Thanks, Tania.
Thank you. In 30 minutes, you just learned what most business owners will spend months trying to figure out on their own. Want to keep that momentum going? Join our free AI Apprentice community at providercollective.com.au. Hundreds of business owners testing tools and sharing real wins. Come and be an AI apprentice with me. Let's become masters together. I'll see you next week, or better yet, I'll see you inside the community today.